Welcome back. Barry's pumped up. It's 150 years ago to the day tomorrow. The first,
that's the actual day.
The actual day. 150 years ago to the day tomorrow, Saturday, the first organized race at Saratoga.
Wow, 1863, huh?
Yeah, a long, storied history. You're going to talk to us today a little bit about some of the great horses that have taken to the track at Saratoga. Of course,
Sure.
Barry Potoker, our Saratoga native.
Would love to.
All right, let's start with some of your favorites.
Well, I mean, they're more memorable than necessarily great, although the greatest horse from my era and for me as a kid growing up when I was 18 years old was Secretariat, who won the 1972 Hopeful, and then came back after winning the Triple Crown in 1973 and ran in the Whitney Stakes, actually against older horses, and lost.
Wow.
Which is kind of ironic because that's kind of where the Saratoga Racecourse started to get more of a reinforcement that this was the graveyard of champions. Secretariat lost to Onion. As a matter of fact, the program that you see is from that day, which currently sells on eBay for $500. By the way.
Oh, we'll steal it later.
Yes, but Secretary was beaten by Onion that day. Onion was trained by the Giant Killer, and that's how he got his name, Alan Jerkins. And anyway, still, seeing that great horse run was one of the most memorable moments in my life.
You know, back to 72, 73, what made Secretariat such a great horse?
Because Secretariat came along at a time when there hadn't been a Triple Crown winner in, I think, 40 or 50 years, since the 20s or 30s or whatever it was. And Secretariat just stole the hearts of everyone. Big horse. And Secretariat set the Belmont record for the Triple Crown for that race, that mile-and-a-half race, that still stands today.
From Secretariat moving on, there's some other horses that have a fondness in your
heart. Sure. I mean, I've seen so many wonderful horses race here. I mean, 4-Star Dave, for instance, was a turf horse that is actually buried here in the backstretch at Saratoga in Clare's Court. 4-Star Dave made, I think, 100 starts and won around 20 of them. So he won like 20% of the time.
Is that common for a horse to
No, not at all. He was a gelding, but he ran till he was, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old. And he won. He was so terrific. They called him the Sultan of Saratoga. He was so terrific because he won 8 consecutive seasons straight. Consecutive means straight. 8 seasons in a row here at Saratoga. And just a terrific turf horse. And as a matter of fact, there's a street named after him over by Ciro's.
4-Star Dave Way.
And the bobblehead doll this year is 4-Star Dave.
It is.
So he was a wonderful horse. One of the most memorable races that I saw, other than the Secretariat race, was the race between Affirmed and Aladar in the 1977 Travers, which Affirmed won the Triple Crown that year. And Aladar finished second to Affirmed in every single one of the Triple Crown races. So they met again here in the Midsummer Derby, and it was the only time that Aladar ever beat Affirmed, but that was through a disqualification. Affirmed was disqualified in that Travers, and Aladar was placed first. So it was a terrific race. It was yes.
Do you remember what caused the disqualification?
Yes. Actually, Affirmed was ridden by Lafitte Pinkai because Steve Cawthon, who had ridden Affirmed, was hurt, and Aladar was ridden by Georgie Velasquez, and Affirmed cut Aladar off, going around the backstretch, and made him check. And then Aladar just couldn't get back enough steam to overtake him at the wire. And the stewards, rightly so, disqualified Affirmed and made Aladar the winner. So Aladar really didn't win the race, but through disqualification won, and was the only time that Aladar ever won.
Wow.
And I was there for that race. It was such a wonderful race.
You know, the Travers race is always full of so much excitement. You know, last year when we had that, head-to-head win.
We had a dead heat, sure.
The first ever dead heat, I think, right?
Actually, believe it or not, there was another dead heat back in the 1800s, late 1800s or early 1900s. And believe it or not, what they did was, because they didn't have cameras then, they thought that the horses finished exactly the same. So you know what they did? They rested the horses for a half hour and they made him run again.
Run it again.
They ran it again, believe it or
Well,
not.
luckily we now have the cameras for it.
Yes.
But there's always that energy in the race. And every once in a while, this horses come along that capture the hearts and imaginations of everybody.
Yeah, we haven't had that in a while. I mean, Rachel Alexandra was a wonderful filly who won, I forget the name of the race, several years ago against the boys. And years ago, there was a horse by the name of Gopher Wand, who was a wonderful filly owned by the Christiana Stables, who is another horse that is actually buried at Saratoga. Actually, as you look at the track and the infield, right by the flagpole, Gopher Wand is buried.
Wow.
Gopher Wand won the Test Stakes here, won the Alabama Stakes, and I think that was, I forget the year now, but Gopher Wand was a wonderful filly. Broke down as a 3-year-old at the Breeders' Cup, and they euthanized her right on the track and buried her right in Saratoga.
And that was a common practice back then,
It was a
or?
common practice back then. They have obviously better techniques now where they try to save the horse, but when a horse shatters its front leg, or any leg for that matter, the way that Gopher Wand did, who ran very, very hard, usually that's the only option. With Barbaro, you know, they tried to save Barbaro, but very valiant efforts, but it just didn't work.
Is there a horse you see this season that could add to your list, or?
No, I don't see the romance in some of the horses right now. I mean, you have the Triple Crown races. You have 3 different winners, and they will hopefully meet here in the Travers. I don't see anything just this year. When horses really go out with big heart and win lots of races, that's how you capture the imagination of all your fans. So I don't see anything yet.
Well, stay tuned. I'm sure a few more will pop up in the next
Hopefully
150 years of racing.
You bet.
Barry Potoker, our track historian, Saratoga
kind
native.
of,
You're
sure.
all the way around, Barry. It's great to delve into the history of the track.
Appreciate that.
Thanks, Barry. We appreciate you being here. Now, to see this segment with Barry and all our weekly segments, head to our website. It's LukeTVOnline.com.